Right, so that's Dennis Miracle Sobuaje. He was on the cocoa farms together with some journalists, and they interacted with some of the farmers. So he appears to be summarizing the concerns that were heard from the farmers, some of whom you saw in red and sitting there. So Isaac Kufieje, help us out. The government is saying, Thomas Nyako-Ampim, the Deputy Finance Minister, says that COCOBOD is going to make huge losses of about $150 million, and government is absorbing that cost. What exactly are we dealing with? Randy Abe, who is right here in the studio and will take some time to explain things to us, explains that about 50,000 tons remain with farmers without buyers due to Ghana's non-competitive farmgate price. What do the statistics say?
Well, the numbers are actually saying a lot, and unfortunately we find ourselves in this situation on Valentine's Day. You know, Valentine's Day is linked with cocoa, right? And so sweeping reforms in the cocoa sector announced by the finance minister on Friday, on Thursday, and we can all actually see what really happened. The cocoa sector is really facing some bit of a challenge, and many are calling it a crisis at the moment. Let's go through the numbers and see what really
happened. A cabinet meeting, so that's a crisis, yeah, true crisis.
Well, if you are looking at 28% fall in the farmgate price of cocoa for the first time possibly in our history, or since, or maybe 1998, this is the first time we are, slashing producer price of cocoa about 28%. That is very, very significant, and maybe you might be right calling it a crisis, looking at it from that tangent. Something I want us to look at this graph.
You spoke about the percentages there. Will you speak to the actual numbers there?
Absolutely. This is where we are talking about.
Take the slide back. Yeah. Yes, the actual numbers are there.
Well, so you can see falling from 58,000 Ghana cedis per ton to about 41,392 per ton. That's 28% drop in the producer price of cocoa. And I say first time in our history that we are doing that. We tracked the data from 2011 to actually see how far we've come in terms of cocoa, prices to the farmer. This is the price per the 64 kg bag. And if you are listening to us on radio, Joy 99.7 FM, what we are talking about is how, prices have increased over the years. And for the first time, cocoa prices are falling. And you can see that between 2023 and 2025 were the years that cocoa prices really, really went high. What can we attribute to this? Most of the years, cocoa prices weren't as high as they were, global prices weren't as high as they were in 2024, right? But because of the exchange rate situation around that time, it gave us that breathing space to be possibly increasing cocoa price, because you can see the actual distribution, the uniform distribution of cocoa price per the 64 kg bag, it hasn't really deviated between 2011 and 2021 until we saw our crisis that saw the cedi depreciate. That is when we are seeing outliers from 2023 and 2025, because the exchange rate was so high to the extent that small dollars was going to give you a number of cedis, and it's very, very significant, and that gave us that breathing space to increase prices. But now we are facing the reality of the true strength of the cedi, and we are pricing, our cocoa at, let's say, about 10 cedis, 25 pesos per dollar. Currently, I think it's been reviewed. Okay. But that has really given us that drop we are seeing there, making it difficult for COCOBOD to actually go up with this trajectory we are seeing to maybe about 4,000 or the 6,000 Ghana cedis they promised per bag. It's simply one of the big factors is the exchange rate situation. How did we come about in terms of this problem? We understand that before this season began, COCOBOD was looking at a world price of $7,267, right? And we set our farmgate price as $5,272. And we said that, well, we are giving farmers 70% of the FOB, means that if you sell 1 ton, a farmer was actually supposed to enjoy some 5,086. What we are learning is that when we did our checks 2 weeks before COCOBOD set this the futures price or the FOB price of 7,200, what we are realizing is that 2 weeks, the average price 2 weeks before was around $7,500. Okay. And COCOBOD decided to set the FOB price at $7,200 using an exchange rate of 10.25 Ghana cedis to the dollar, and that made it impossible for the farmer to actually maybe see the 6,000 that was promised. But what we have seen is that the price has actually fallen below the FOB that we set.
That's right.
And the intelligence we are gathering is that for COCOBOD to break even, they were looking at a price of, let's say, about 6,400. Now, that price is way below where we are at the moment, making it very, very difficult for COCOBOD to possibly step in with some sort of shortfall, or for the government to come in with some form of intervention.
Right.
That is difficult. How did the market actually come to this conclusion in terms of the prices dropping? You can see the distribution of cocoa production from Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. Cote d'Ivoire definitely on top of the two countries, producing on average about 1.8 million metric tons every year. Ghana still doing around 650,000 metric tons. Ecuador is actually marching up Ghana with some 570,000 metric tons. And all of this is feeding into the world market. Remember, a year before, we had promised to produce about over 800,000 metric tons, and we're only able to produce about 450.
Okay.
And so to promise the market, or to tell the market that you are going to produce 650,000 metric tons this current season, Ecuador coming on board with a lot of cocoa beans. Nigeria, on the other hand, is also increasing their production. Cameroon is increasing. China is coming on board. The markets picked that signal that supply was going to be abundant on the market, and prices began to fall. And did we do forward sales? Randy Abe will answer that question shortly for us. But this is the situation of COCOBOD in terms of their profitability. COCOBOD's situation, their losses situation didn't start this year. It's been like that, and we've tracked from 2012 to about 2024. And within this period, it is only about 3 years that COCOBOD was able to record a profit. And something you can see where 2012 a loss, 2013 a loss, and we are talking about even a loss of 4.1 billion Ghana cedis in 2022.
In 13 years.
In 13 years.
COCOBOD made profit only in three of those years.
That is the picture for you. And in fact, this year, there was a projection that COCOBOD could make a profit. Looking at what they told the IMF in the IMF program, or the review, we have checked that data. COCOBOD was on course to make a profit, but because of the fall in the global price, now we are asking ourselves, are they still in pole position to actually make a profit? Randy Abe will answer that for us. And let's look at COCOBOD's problem. This is what they told the IMF, right? They were asked a very simple question. What do you think are the sources of your problem? COCOBOD spoke about 3 things, which I want us to talk about. They say the direct cost, producer price, crop protection, and soil fertility costs. They also spoke about administrative costs, where that is coming from. It's coming from the exchange rate losses. That is COCOBOD's biggest headache. If you are looking at our IMF program, a number of SOEs were listed to be, for our eyes to be on. COCOBOD was number 1. ECG came on that phrase. One thing we know is that when our exchange rate is performing really well, it is an advantage for ECG. But if it's performing badly, or if it's performing really well, it's an advantage for ECG. But if it's on the other side where depreciation is all over the place, that is usually an advantage for COCOBOD, because they sell less, cocoa, they're able to get more because the exchange rate is very high. This year, unfortunately for them, they are not finding that, in there. And I remember Randy Abe jokingly saying that he called the finance minister and told him that, Charlie, where you are dragging the exchange rate to, we may be in trouble. And he said that, and we are seeing that reflect in their finances. They also spoke about their interest costs on cocoa bills. Remember that this was a big headache for COCOBOD. And when we're doing the DDP in 2023, we had to add COCOBOD to it, so that people who had bought cocoa bills suffered haircuts. Now we understand that with the new funding model, COCOBOD is going back to the market to actually issue bonds. And remember, these were T-bills.
Right.
They were converted to bonds, 5-year bonds, to allow COCOBOD to be able to turn around. That is going to be the same strategy. And we understand that even banks who bought cocoa bills suffer some level of haircut. Bank of Ghana also suffers some level of haircut. That model is going to return. But the question we're asking something is, did COCOBOD read the market wrongly? If you are watching us on Facebook, or if you are watching us on JoyNews, what you can see is the world market price. This has been the trajectory, if you are looking at it in 5 years. And look at it
from 2022 to 2026.
Absolutely. this is where we were when we were setting the FOB price, somewhere in August, where the price was around 7,500 on average. And then we set the FOB 2 weeks after we began to see some level of fluctuations. But many are saying that this, happening here between somewhere October and September may have deceived COCOBOD because it was looking like global prices were going to peak. And many have said that maybe COCOBOD read the markets wrongly. We simply do not know. Randy Abe possibly will have answers for us. Lastly, I want us to talk about this.
That was such a sharp fall.
Sharp fall. And you can see it there. And this, this morning when I was coming, I checked the price, and you can see it there.
How did you survive this? Anyway, Randy will tell us.
Randy will tell us.
He has been speaking with the finance minister.
In fact, COCOBOD currently wants to actually restructure most of the things they are doing. Right. One thing we know that this big figure you see on the smart, or $3.8 billion is how much COCOBOD was able to, or how much we got from our cocoa export in 2025. The key question is, how much of the cocoa we produce within this season actually brought this amount of money? Because if you are looking at the trend, the 3.8 billion we got from cocoa export is the highest since 2009. So why are we having this problem? We've had a lot from cocoa. 3.8 billion, higher than the average of 2 billion we've possibly been having.
Do you know what is going on in my mind as I hear 3 billion? It's kind of also, but for almost a decade, we have been told by those who give us money that we're losing $3 billion each year to corruption. And now that figure has gone to 5 billion each year.
Fortunately.
So 3.8 billion was a loss. Then I'm also thinking about what gold is doing for us, the magic through the gold board. In the last year, over 10 billion is what they brought to us. So is cocoa really still the cash cow?
Cocoa has always been the mainstay of the economy because hitherto, until the introduction of gold board, is the only commodity you can beat your chest and say we get about 90% of whatever we sell.
Right.
Unlike gold. Then we brought in gold board and we are getting a lot from gold.
All right, but, so let's conclude this quickly and get to...
is the amount we got from our, cocoa exports. And the question is, how much of this season's cocoa actually contributed to that 3.8? And how is COCOBOD finding its way around the losses? What we know is that for COCOBOD to be able to return to a part of relief. This is the raft of announcement that the finance minister put out. They are going to issue cocoa bonds, right? How are they going to do it? First of all, they have to clean their books because they currently have a negative equity. So Bank of Ghana has decided to take some of the burden. Finance Ministry is also taking some of the burden. COCOBOD itself, we understand they are also taking some of the burden because there's a whole restructuring in their turnaround strategy that they sent to the Bank of Ghana. So the new strategy is that COCOBOD is going to finance purchase of cocoa using bonds.
All right.
And the key question is, these bonds are expected to be bought by individuals and banks. In a situation where prices fall, are we going to see another crisis, possibly in the banking sector, where COCOBOD is unable to pay them?
The beans that we can't
processed locally
will be processed locally and streamline COCOBOD's cost. It's one of the biggest things people are looking at.
Last thing,
right?
Many are asking about burden sharing. What is the government taking away? Already they are saying that they're taking a huge component of COCOBOD's debt. They're also saying that the beans that we have, and which is resulting to the losses, they are taking a hit of $150 million because of the restructuring. But the big question we are all asking is COCOBOD, will they be able to set another lucrative farmgate price in the next season? Because what I'm looking at, it looks like it will be difficult to set a new, a very lucrative price in the upcoming season.
That looks like that.
We have still asked. Right. So Randy Abe will have most of the answers for us.
Right. Thank you very much, Isaac.